problem? I don't know. I don't know at this point if, that truly is the thing going on. It might be. Who really knows at this point? But it is a part of the game where things have been lost, and part of the kicking game has been lost over time, is where they've lost some points there. And that's where I want to get to really to start off is the points. I took some time, and I will put this as the generic caveat all in front. All of the numbers I'm giving you are me analyzing box scores because there isn't a flat, easy way for me to fact check some of this information. So if I've missed anything I'm presenting to you, I do apologize. I tried to double check everything. I used our good friends at Pro Football Reference to try and figure this out. It gets a little wonky. That being said, I looked at missed kicks, fumbled punts, and then there's a fumble on a kickoff. I want to look at all those special teams mistakes and think about how many points have the Chiefs lost for themselves or allowed to opponents via special teams mistakes. So we're going to start with the fumbling issue. Sky Moore, it feels like a bunch more, but has been credited with 3 lost fumbles on muffed punts this year. Now, going back through them all, only 7 points can be say were directly allowed via the result of the muffed punt, and that was against Indianapolis. That was when he fumbled the punt down like the 5 or the 10 or whatever, and then the Colts got it real quickly, and then immediately, scored a touchdown. He had another muffed punt against the Rams, to which the defense proceeded to force another punt. And then he had a muffed punt, and I need to now double check this information, so give me just one quick moment to remember exactly what happened in the ensuing possession. Yes, he had a muffed punt against the 49ers. I remember this now. He had the muffed punt against the 49ers. They had goal to go. Joshua Williams then proceeded to pick off Jimmy Garoppolo on a 3rd down pass that led to no points. So, even though we get mad at Sky Moore for the muffed punts, only 7 points were allowed directly via his muffed punts. Then we go to the other guys that have muffed some things. Mecole Hardman is credited with a muffed punt this year, though we did recover it. So Mecole Hardman has not lost any possessions via a muffed punt. And then Kadarius Toney, as we saw in the game against Denver on Sunday, he fumbled on a punt return. He caught the punt cleanly, did some dancing around inside the 10, fumbled the ball. The Broncos then scored a touchdown. 7 points allowed via that special teams turnover. So right now, we're at 14 points allowed or garnered based on fumbled punts. Now, I want to add this. This doesn't have an impact on anything. There was a fumble on a kickoff this year that I don't know if anybody actually remembers because Lord knows I forgot about it. Isaiah Pacheco has a fumble on a kickoff this year. He immediately recovered it after it happened. So, you didn't lose a possession, but I forget that Pacheco has a fumble on a kickoff. Either way, because he recovered it, no missed points, no lost points at that point. So, as of now, when it comes to fumbling the ball on special teams, the Chiefs have given up or handed the opposing offense 14 points. Because the 14 points allowed in those situations on those 2 times were the offense of the opposing team basically starting almost in goal to go, which at that point, most defenses are going to give up touchdowns. It is so hard not to. I know we can discuss, well, they need to not to, but it's very difficult. And then also is worth noting, they basically were set up 4 times in those situations, and 2 of them, they did it. They did what they needed to do. 2 of Sky Moore's 3 fumbles, the defense actually did step up and not allow points. So, there's a negative 14 for the Chiefs in points on those. Then we go into the deeper conversation, though, which has been the hot topic for, I think, even more than the fumble recovery, the fumbles and muffed punts by particularly Sky Moore. And that's the kicking game. I'm going to start with the backup kickers just to get their small samples out of the way. Matthew Wright was asked to kick. He missed 1 field goal. That is 3 points he left on the board. Matt Amendola had his game against the Colts where he missed a field goal and an extra point. That is 4 points he left on the board. So that's 7 points the Chiefs lost out on over 2 games because of the backup kickers, the emergency kickers. Then we get to the big one. Harrison Butker this year has missed 6 field goals and 3 extra points. That is a total of 21 points left on the board for the Chiefs. Now, that makes from the kicking game in totality 28 points left on the board by Chiefs kickers this year. Now, there is a missed PAT that is not a non-PAT. It's not accounted for in these numbers, and that is Harrison Butker was not credited with a missed PAT on the botch snap that Tommy Townsend ran around with against Denver on Sunday. Because it was a botch snap that never even it was attempted to be kicked, it goes down as a 2-point conversion attempt. So, in theory, you could say 29 points if we're going to add that PAT. That is 29 points the Chiefs have lost via their kicking game. That's the raw overall numbers. That's if you stare at the numbers and you think about it. The Chiefs have given up have lost 29 points on kicks. Now, I think that also, though, needs to include in itself a more nuanced take on it. Because I think, looking at the special teams, if there's an area I think the Chiefs really need to be getting hammered on, it's the kicking game. I think return game and return coverage. So punt coverage, kick return, punt return. Honestly, I think we can just call this a wash at this point and stop really worrying about that. The Chiefs have not had a big issue stopping returns this year. Pacheco fumbled the one kickoff very early, has been very solid since then. Also, most kickoffs become touchbacks anyways. And since Kadarius Toney's been added and McCole Hardman's coming back healthy and they've used Justin Watson, the muffed punting issue is fairly under control. I know it's crazy to say that after Kadarius Toney just fumbled via on a punt the very last game. The very next punt that Cortlis Waitman popped off in that game went inside the 5, and Toney let it drop. Like, very quickly, I think Toney learned his lesson, and I trust that Toney's going to work on that going forward. So I'm kind of willing to put the muffed punt returning issues in the rear view mirror. Which means when you're discussing the Chiefs' special teams issues, it has to be focused on the kicking game. And that's where the difficulties and the nuances have to come in. Because it's easy to say, well, Harrison Butker's just missing kicks. It's all his fault. He needs to be making kicks. Cut him and save some money next year. I hear that. I do. Saving money on Harrison Butker is something I understand. Same time, as I will always say, he's better than people want to give him credit for. Either way. But then we get to the nuanced point of, is it the kicking operation that's the problem? Because think to the kicks that he missed or didn't get to attempt to miss on Sunday. There was the botched PAT and there was the blocked field goal before half. The botched PAT was either a bad snap or a bad hold. We do not know. I couldn't tell from the stands. I've not seen anybody put out video to really tell which one it was. Either Winchester or Townsend's at fault there, and they had to board it. That's not on Butker. That's a failure of the kicking operation. That's not on your kicker. Then we go to the blocked kick. Harrison Butker has made enough 50-plus and 60-plus yarders. I say enough on the 60-plus. He's made 162 yarder, which this year is really cool. He's made enough long kicks that I do not think the block is because of a trajectory issue by Butker. The other part when it comes to blocks are rarely on the kicker. Because even if you're like, well, the kick was too low, they're doing that because they have to do it to make it. Longer kicks, you have to kick a bit lower to not have it arc so much to give it more distance. So at that point, on the blocked kick that you lost 3 points on, it's either, again, a hold issue because the snap was clean. Either Tommy held it weirdly that gave it a chance to be blocked, or you put it on the protection that let a lineman get through enough to get his hands on the kick. So there's a missed field goal that, honestly, I don't think you can put on Butker. That does leave us with 5 misses that I think you could potentially put on Harrison Butker or Tommy Townsend the holder, and I don't know which. I am not well versed enough in the kicking game to pick apart the nitty-gritty of, did the kick get missed because of a bad hold? They looked like they came off the foot clean. They looked fine. The ball placement looked fine. So I don't know. That being said, I go back to Dustin Colquitt, who was a holder in the NFL for over a decade, knows the craft. He at least has openly said that he feels Tommy Townsend has been a bad holder all year. I don't know if that's true. It could be. I trust Dustin Colquitt's opinion of the situation far more than I trust my own, because he knows more about the craft than I do. At the same time, these problems weren't massively present last year when Tommy Townsend was the holder. Because if you look at Harrison Butker's stats last year, as I pulled them up, he missed 3 kicks last year in 2021. 89% field goal percentage, kind of roughly where he's been for his career. He had 92% the year before. He had 89.5, so 0.2 of a percentage point difference the year prior. It's all very similar. And then you just have this crater this year that so I don't know if the hold can be the full thing here. But then I go to this on Butker, is just the other part I want to make sure is just always, I think, known and kept in mind. Butker hurt his ankle week 1 because of bad turf in Arizona. It is an injury he himself has said has bothered him all year, even when he's come back. He does not take the same running start to his kickoffs even, because he's trying to mitigate the ankle. It is his plant leg, which throws some mechanics off. If this is a mechanical issue, because that's what kicking is. It is a very mechanical process that is a very specific technique to be executed. An injury can throw that entire thing out of whack. That could be the issue as well. I don't know what the solution is, and I do think it does need to be solved, because the Chiefs have left, with Butker alone, 21 points on the board. 3 touchdowns worth of points have been left on the board this year by Harrison Butker. Not all on his own fault, but it's there. I do think Dave Tobin company need to figure out what's happening and get it fixed. I understand all the ire of Chiefs fans for the kicking game struggles and all these issues. I get it. I'm with you. I think there's a nuanced part to it, but you put it into numbers so we can identify it. 3 touchdowns worth of points have been left on the board by the kicking game. There's other parts of the special teams I understand we want to get worried about and other things. I think that might be the focal point part to look at. But I also think it is the most fixable part, and that's the important thing I wanted to take away from this. This seems fixable. I don't know for sure if it is, but it seems like it. We'll take a time out here on Mic'd Up. We'll be back after this. I'm always intrigued by quarterback decisions that come at the end of the year because sometimes in week 18, you get the weirdest quarterback starting. Washington just announced that their rookie quarterback, Sam Howell on North Carolina, will be starting on Sunday, which is smart. He was your 5th round pick. Maybe get him some run. You have nothing left to play for. Carson Wentz is garbage. There's nothing to see there. Taylor Heineke, you kind of know what you got. See what Sam Howell can do. I don't think he's going to play particularly well, but see what Sam Howell can do. I don't know. It's a vibe. But then there's the really fun part. Folks, it's that time again. If you're a gambling person, you can bet against the Peterman. Nathan Peterman will start for the Chicago Bears on Sunday because Justin Fields injured his hip. I don't know how Nathan Peterman still has a job because that man once threw 5 interceptions in a single half. I watched it happen. It was hilarious. But there's nothing better than getting to win money than off the Peterman. So that's just a little heads up. Nathan Peterman will start on Sunday. Week 18 sometimes features the weirdest quarterback matchups because some teams just throw random guys out there. But Nathan Peterman for the Bears having to play against the Vikings on Sunday, man, that is going to be very entertaining. We'll take another timeout. When we come back, we'll look at big wins for KU and K-State last night. Last night, an NBA game broke out in Lubbock, Texas. Not Lubbock, in Austin. Very much not an NBA game broke out in Lubbock, but an NBA game broke out in Austin. We'll get to K-State in a minute. We're going to start with KU. And before anyone gets mad at me, we're starting with KU because there's less for me to get to. We're just going to get the Hawks out of the way and then break down K-State's great game last night. I'm doing it this way because I want the thing that maybe has more breakdown to get the back end time to get more good stuff to it. We'll get KU out of the way first. We're just going to make some of you happy, some of you upset. I don't know at this point. But Kansas gets another close win to kick off conference play. They had a very narrow win over Oklahoma State after they rallied from 15 down at the half to beat them in Lawrence to kick off conference play. Then they head down to Lubbock to take on Mark Adams' Texas Tech squad. Return for Kevin McCullough to Lubbock, which I want to add. Jeff Goodman had the audacity to say, "Oh, I think Kevin McCullough will be cheered by many." Newsflash to anyone that didn't watch the game. He was not cheered. Anyone remember when LeBron James returned to Cleveland for the first time with Miami? Anyone remember that? And every time LeBron touched the ball, boos deafened the arena. That was Kevin McCullough last night. Every time Kevin McCullough in the first possession touched the ball, a bunch of boos rained out. Kevin McCullough then missed a turnaround jumper. You would think that Texas Tech just won the national title. Just a chorus of cheers. And that was the entire night. Also, a bleep you Kevin chant broke out randomly in the second half, and it might have been the funniest thing that I ever saw happen. Because there was nothing that's, in my opinion, that sparked it. Kevin McCullough wasn't doing anything. He had a actually pretty pedestrian, if not bad, night. I think he was on the floor doing something. And then just coming out of a break, the crowd just starts that bleep you Kevin chant. It was very funny. That energy was hilarious. But nonetheless, KU gets the win, 75-72 against Texas Tech. They led by 7 at halftime before Texas Tech really locked in defensively in the second half. Got some good runs and was able to make it close. Pop Isaacs versus Texas Tech. Just give some love to an opposing player. Pop Isaacs, the freshman guard for Texas Tech. That kid's going to be a problem. That kid shoots the ball incredibly well. Plus, I have found this out. If your nickname is Pop, you must be the angriest person while you play games. Because Pop Isaac was just exploding with energy and exuberance and playing like someone made him mad. And then, of course, Isaiah Pacheco's nickname is Pop, and he runs like every blade of grass insulted his entire family. I'm just coming to the conclusion that if your nickname is Pop, you must play very angrily. It's a weird coincidence. But KU gets the win. Offensively, the big star of the night was DeJuan Harris, who scored a career-high 18 points on 5 of 5 three-point shooting. DeJuan Harris, not known as a shooter, was 5 for 5 from 3 last night for KU. That was absolutely hilarious watching him make and take those shots. And that's what KU needs him to do. Is do that, because then defenses will sag off him a lot less. It opens up a lot more spacing for KU. So it's very important, and it's a very, enjoyable sign to see DeJuan Harris take and make so many of those three-point shots and outside shots that he did last night. Jalen Wilson dropped 16 points, which caused controversy for some in the gambling world. And then KJ Adams, another stellar double-digit performance, 14 points from KJ Adams. Jake always likes to discuss bench points for KU and how that is what they need to keep, really, really solidify games. For what it's worth, KU had 9 points off the bench last night, 7 from Bobby Pettiford and 2 from Cam Martin. So, tight game, mainly having to be led by the starters. I think Jake kind of has a point that if they want easier wins, they got to find something off the bench, and that is what Bill Self is still figuring out. But overall, not a game with a lot of deep dives or deep takeaways to get into for KU last night. They played well defensively, made some good plays. I know there were some comments from Texas Tech fans about the foul disparity last night and how, there were some late fouls that weren't called. Really, it was just one foul on kind of the final drive by Pop Isaacs. There was another player who might have been held by Jalen Wilson. Fact of the matter is, fouls balance themselves out, and Texas Tech shot more free throws on the night than KU. So, yes, some things don't get called, but overall, fouls balance themselves out. Other things you can do in a game to try and avoid those things becoming a problem. But overall, good win for KU. They are now 2-0 in conference play before they head to West Virginia for their next matchup coming up later on this week. Going into next week and next weekend, they will head to Morgantown to take on a very talented West Virginia Mountaineer squad led by Bob Huggins. That's KU. Pretty simple win, 75-72. Nothing real crazy coming out of that outside of just the great scoring performance from Juwan Harris. That if KU gets more of that, that will lead them very well going forward. And really, they showed, and also the last thing I'll say on KU, I think they really showed that the defense might be the thing that really drives what they can do in a game. Because early on, Texas Tech jumped out to about an 8-point lead. Because KU wasn't getting a lot of shots to fall, and Texas Tech was getting a lot of good looks. Then KU all of a sudden really locked in defensively and really started turning up the tempo, forcing the pressure, turning up the pressure, and caused Texas Tech to take some really tough shots that missed, and KU scored on some runouts and things like that. I think the defense stepping up for KU will be the best indicator going on of games where they can really turn it around. If they're ever going to struggle in games, it's going to be entirely, in my opinion, because their defensive intensity is not where it needs to be. But we'll see. They got tough matchup coming up against West Virginia. That will be their next matchup. Then we get to K-State, which had a ridiculous score. K-State beat Texas 116-103, and that game was played fully in regulation. That wasn't an overtime score. That was played in regulation in a 116-103 victory for K-State, which is just insane. For a comparison, because I make the joke about, man, that seemed like it was an NBA score. Well, folks, let me tell you what happened in the association last night. Because K-State outscored two NBA teams. The Washington Wizards scored 113 points last night. K-State scored more. The Utah Jazz scored 115. Obviously, K-State scored more. And then two teams just dropped 117 in the Sacramento Kings and the Boston Celtics. Like, when I say it was an NBA score, it legit was. Insanely. And when I talk to Kellis coming up at the bottom of the next hour, I want to get his opinion on this. Because I was trying to balance watching both games at the same time. Both these games tipped off at 8 o'clock, which made my life very difficult because I'm trying to watch both. I had to double screen the action. It's very hard to pay attention to what's happening. Texas's defense had to have been lackadaisical for a lot of parts. But also, I think K-State just shot so well and took some good shots. K-State shot 60% from the floor. They made 13 threes. That's something I don't know if we ever thought we'd say about a K-State team. But they did it. They played so incredibly well. They really, really found a way to put up just such an absurd, an absolutely absurd scoreline in this game. Marquise Noel dropped 36 points with 9 assists. Like, good Lord. Marquise Noel has been playing like one of the better players, and I think the entire country as of late, as he's really started to find his groove. Which, Makes me happy. I've always said this about Marquise Noel, and to just be on him for a minute. He was a guy that I've talked about a lot, and my thing with him was always a level of he can play kind of out of control and take some ridiculous shots that don't need to be taken. And that's where always my criticism of his play has been. Is I just think he just doesn't play within the system sometimes as well as he should. But I can't say that as much this year. Yeah, there's been a couple of shots Noel has taken. It was a couple games ago in the middle of a possession. He took an early in the shot clock, near, the logo three that didn't go in. And I made a joke of like, well, yep, you're still going to have that happen. It's Marquise Noel. But he's gotten so much better at playing under control. And that's been my biggest thing for him this year is Jerome Tang has got him to understand playing under controlled chaos. Letting him be that aggressive, attacking guard he wants to be, but not at the expense of what the team needs him to be. Here is Marquise Noel's numbers over these last 3 games. He has 69 points. On above 50% shooting, he's 18 of 34 from the floor. He's 9 of 18 from 3. 24 of 27 on free throws. And he has 30 assists over his last 3 games. We give a lot of talk and a lot of notoriety to Keontae Johnson. And rightfully so for Keontae. Rightfully so. Because Keontae's story is great. The fact that Keontae's playing basketball at all is amazing. And the level he's playing it at is truly inspirational. Last time we saw Keontae try and play basketball, he collapsed on the court at Florida. And we honestly didn't know. No one knew if he was ever going to play basketball ever again. Truly didn't. His story is awesome. And I'll get to Keontae more here in a minute. But Marquise Noel is the second most important player on this team. And it's not just his ability at times to be a really good scorer. He is showing himself to be a leader on this team. He is one of 2 guys that are holdovers and play any level of minutes at times for this K-State team from last year. At times, Ish Massoud gets in on the action, but overall, it's really just Marquise Noel. Ish Massoud played 20 minutes last night, made 4 free throws. But Noel stuck around. He could have left. I don't know where he would have gone. I don't know if he would have gotten another Power 5 team looking into him. But Marquise could have left. He could have said, I don't want to deal with what Jerome Tang's bringing in. I'm not picking up what Jerome Tang's laying down. I'm gone. Instead, he's connected with this coaching staff. He's connected with Coach Tang. And he has taken it upon himself as one of the one of the veteran guys, the holdovers on this team to lead this group. And that might be the thing that's impressed me most about Marquise Noel. He is a guy that last year, I'll admit, I gave a lot of flack to last year. And it's because of the out-of-control way he played. It was the stupid shots. There was a game, it was late game against Iowa State. They had a chance to win. Instead of attacking the rim, doing what he needed to do to attack the rim and at least tie the game up, Marquise Noel dribbled around the backcourt, then shot a logo 3. There's no reason for it. And it was things like that that had me get on him, had me nag him. It's why I wasn't a fan. Because it's just players like that, it tends to cause problems. But I will give Marquise credit for putting in the work, and I will give Coach Tang the credit for connecting with him. He is a different player this year. And I love to see it. I love to see guys take that challenge, take that opportunity, and really turn it into something special. So what Marquise Noel has done recently has been amazing, has been fantastic. He's just had some absolutely phenomenal games this year. He's always the smallest guy on the court, but man, he just knows how to play. He has 59 points in his last 2 games. Scored 23 in the overtime win against West Virginia. Got a double-double with his 10 assists in that one. And then he had the 36 against Texas. His last 4 games, he's gone 7 assists, 11 assists, 10 assists, 9 assists. Now against Radford, he had a little bit of turnover issue, 6 turnovers to those 11 assists. But outside of that, 2 turnovers, 3 turnovers, 1 turnover. He's playing under control. He's playing confident. It's great to see. And I'm really so overjoyed to see how well he's playing. The other part of the K-State win last night was Keontae Johnson, as it always is. Keontae Johnson, 28 points, 9 rebounds. He was 10 to 16 from the floor, made all his free throws. It's the best story in college basketball is Keontae Johnson. He's playing 32 minutes a game, which is a career high right now. He's shooting 57% from the floor as essentially a guard-forward combo. I know he's listed as a forward at 6'6", but he also kind of plays more like a guard. But he's shooting so well. But this year, he's averaging 21 points a game. He's averaging 21 and 10. It's impressive. He's doing that on the road. Those are his road stats, 21 and 10 on the road. For the year, 18.7 rebounds. He is playing so well right now, and it's absurd. 18 against Incarnate Word, 23 against Nebraska, 16 against Radford, 18 against West Virginia. He is very much a leader and an engine and someone truly making this team go with how well he's playing. And it's just awesome. It's great to see what he's doing. It's great to see how well he's playing. And it overjoys me to see how well he is playing right now because of the story that he is in college basketball. I don't know if K-State will come close to the offensive show they put on last night. Probably not. That was a school record for points scored in a conference road game for K-State, 116 points. Now, Jerome Tang did say there were some things he wished the team would do better last night, probably related around the fact they did give up 103 points. The 116 was nice. You can't give up 103. Even in a game like that and the pace is being played, you got to find different ways to do it. But K-State, man, I said earlier this week that this was going to be the test. I didn't think West Virginia was going to be much of a test, but it was, so it really did help. But at Texas, and then Saturday, they're at Baylor. Jerome Tang, his first return to Waco. This is telling us everything we need to know about K-State. Got a big win over the number 6 team in the country. They've won back-to-back top 25 games. I don't know if they'll beat Baylor. I know a lot of you might think, well, Fulton, they just put up 160 on Texas. Of course they'll beat Baylor. Texas is better than Baylor. By the metrics, Texas is better than Baylor, so that actually is true. I don't know if K-State can repeat a level of this same offensive efficiency. They're not going to repeat the exact same level of offensive efficiency. They're not going to score 100 again against Baylor. If they do, that's really impressive. But my thing for K-State all year, and will always be the thing for me all year, is how well can they execute a half-court offense? Because K-State is going to defend. Even though they get 103 points to Texas, they still tried to defend. There were some other points in there, and Texas made some good contested shots. But Jerome Tang's team is going to at least put up effort defensively, and they can get buckets in transition. But it's can they execute a half-court offense? I feel that that is still the big barrier to anything K-State wants to do. All comes down to, can they execute in the half-court? I think they can. They're showing more of an ability to. And man, unless something crazy happens as this year goes on, I think K-State's an NCAA tournament team. I've been kind of fringed on that, on if they really were a tournament team or they weren't a tournament team. I don't know. I never been more certain. I think they are. With how tight the Big 12 is going to be, I think K-State could probably, they already have 2 Big 12 wins. Like, they're 2-0 in conference. It's impressive what they're doing. But unless something majorly falters, I really think K-State can find a way to make it to the NCAA tournament, which I've seen some of these comments and I agree with them. if you're having a conversation about National Coach of the Year and you don't include Jerome Tang in it, then I don't think your discussion's serious. What Jerome Tang has done needs to be recognized at how impressive it is so far. Yeah, does it help that he has a healthy Keontae Johnson who, before he got hurt, the year he had his medical issue, was the SEC preseason player of the year. Yeah, he's got a very talented player on his team. He also has an entire team of guys that had never played basketball together before July. Never. It's 13 dudes who had never hooped together. And they play so cohesively and have such an identity. That is so impressive. This is a K-State team that was left not dead in the water, but had really been lackluster the past couple of years under Bruce Weber. That is not to disparage Weber or some of the things he did. There's some great moments in that tenure. But the last couple of years were very lackluster. What Jerome Tang has done is incredibly impressive and should not be ignored, second-guessed, completely missed, whatever you want to say. It has to be identified what this team has done. I think the biggest thing that any coach can do, any new coach can do, when they come into a program, and this goes for college basketball, college football, NFL level, at any level of coaching, when you're taking over a program or an institution, it's what culture and identity do you want to build? That's what Lance Leipold did so well for KU. We talk about this KU turnaround on the football field. Well, it's because Lance Leipold created a culture of guys buying in and being player-led. That's what, if anyone around that program will tell you what happened, that was the biggest spark, was the culture changed. That's one of the most first things and most important things you have to do as a new man coming into these situations is you have to build the right culture and right identity for your team, because at the end of the day, that's what you can rally around. And that's what Jerome Tang has done. This team is going to have their ups and they're going to have their downs. They're really up right now. It is awesome. It is awesome how high they are right now at 13-1 and 2-0 in the conference. They might have some lows. There might be some losses that sting, some games they lose that they shouldn't have lost. But if anything, there's an identity to this K-State team, and it is grit and it is toughness. They will play hard, and they will be a pain for any team in the Big 12. This conference is incredibly tough. It is incredibly deep. But I've been waiting to buy K-State stock. I'm willing to really start putting my money down on it now. The K-State Wildcats are for real, and they are a very, very good basketball team. It's been fun to see what they do going forward. That'll do it for the noon hour here on Mic'd Up. We have the 1 o'clock hour coming up next. It's time for hour number 2 of Mic'd Up here on 580 WIBW. Fulton Caster here with you for this hour of the show. We got a lot coming up to you coming up on the show for the rest of today. Bottom of this hour, Kellis Robinett will join me to chat all things K-State, including mainly the epic game against Texas last night. Get his thoughts as he watched that one for the Wildcats pulling out their big victory. We will hear from Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes coming up later on today, and look, of course, the Chiefs' special teams woes and break down that kicking situation a lot more. You can join in on the show, as always, on the Big O Tires text line, 785-272-9429. And the YouTube live stream is up for any of you that did not find it or did not notice it popping up. We solved their technical difficulties quicker than I expected, which makes me happy. I like it when things get fixed faster than expected. So we are back up on that. You can go to youtube.com, go to Sports on 580. You can watch the live stream and jump in on the live comment section as well. To kick off this 1 o'clock hour here on Mic'd Up, I wanted to look into something a little bit more and at least discuss the situations a little bit more when it comes to some of the quarterback decisions made in week 18, but moreover, just the quarterback situations going on in the NFL, because there's a lot. We always talk about this, and the Chiefs have not been a part of this conversation in a while because they have Patrick Mahomes. But there's a middle ground to quarterback situations you just don't want to be in. Really, what you want for sure is you want the franchise guy. That makes your life easier. To have your Mahomes, your Burrow, your Allen, maybe your Herbert. I think Herbert, with his 5,000-yard season he had last year and finally getting to the playoffs this year, I think Herbert can start slowly sliding into that conversation. I think Lamar Jackson can be out of that conversation now with just how bad Baltimore is when they play football without Lamar. They just can't do anything without him leading their offense. But then you have some teams that are just in this weird mired situation. And I wanted to kind of look at who was there, what they're doing this week to try and solve, to see if they have a solution to their quarterback situation. And also with the limited resources that happen in the NFL draft, what teams definitely are looking for quarterbacks coming up this year because the changes that, like, if you think about it, we have a lot of backup quarterbacks that are probably going to be starting this week that you can consider for sure backup quarterbacks. Tyler Huntley is more than likely starting Sunday against Cincinnati unless something drastic happens. There's not been a big update out of the Ravens camp on what's going on with Lamar Jackson. Unless something crazy happens, you have Tyler Huntley starting against Cincinnati. Tampa and Atlanta, that's fine. New England, Buffalo, all right. Minnesota, Chicago, we talked about it. Nathan Peterman is starting for Chicago. Now, that's for just the fact that Justin Fields is hurt, but they're having to start a backup quarterback. And also, if you're the Bears, you're still kind of in limbo on Justin Fields because even in your last game, he had 132 rushing yards. That's awesome. He's also 7 of 21 passing. And I love Justin Fields. I've been a Justin Fields guy from day one. He needs to improve as a pocket passer. The Bears still have that question. Indianapolis and Houston go at it this week. That is a quintessential matchup of two teams that don't know what they're doing at the quarterback position. The Texans seem like Davis Mills is not the guy. They went to this weird 2-quarterback system this year. And then the Colts have cycled through 3 different guys, and none of them are the call, with Matt Ryan not playing well and being benched a couple times. Sam Ehlinger never playing well. And Nick Foles has been used a couple times, and he looks like he really does need to hang it up. They don't know what they're doing at their quarterback spot. That's the matchup of two teams that don't know what they're doing. Miami and the Jets are going at it coming up here. Miami, I think, feels confident in what they have in Tua Tagovailoa, but with his concussion issues this season, they're down to either Teddy Bridgewater or Skylar Thompson to be the starting quarterback coming up on Sunday. And then we all know the well-documented issue with the Jets. Zach Wilson's already pretty much done in New York. They've benched him, and it's Mike White's season. Like, any time that Zach Wilson has played, he hasn't looked well. So the Jets, they have their own issues. Carolina and New Orleans, the Panthers, Sam Darnold's played well, but is he their solution? The Saints have to deal with Andy Dalton or Jameis Winston. They don't know their situation. Pittsburgh seems to have what they got going on. Cleveland has theirs. Denver's stuck with Russell Wilson. The Giants, Daniel Jones looks like he's become kind of the guy, but are you going to win a Super Bowl with Daniel Jones? San Francisco has their questions because Brock Purdy's been playing well. Not as great as I don't think he's been as great as everyone else thinks he's been, but I think he's been playing well. And Trey Lance, when he's healthy. Seattle has their Geno Smith question. Washington has their issues. They're likely starting Sam Howell against the Cowboys coming up on Sunday. And then Detroit has the Jared Goff conversation to have because Jared Goff's playing so well, but can you win a Super Bowl with him? Think about all those teams I went through there that either have nothing at quarterback to do anything with or are in such a weird limbo spot of like, you kind of have a guy, but can you win a title with that guy? And I think that is a very interesting situation to be in for the NFL as a league as a whole, because we keep talking about, and there's been a lot of talk about, the league has some really great young quarterbacks. That there's a new wave of young quarterbacks coming through to kind of set us up with just this great standing of quarterbacks going into the new generation. Now now that Manning's gone, Brady's probably on his way out sooner rather than later. Rodgers is going to be out sooner rather than later. All the long-standing great names are all essentially gone. Kansas City has Patrick Mahomes. Jacksonville has Trevor Lawrence, who I'm not going to put in any level of a tier of an elite guy, but is a very good young quarterback for Jacksonville. Cincinnati has Joe Burrow. Buffalo has Josh Allen. The Chargers have Justin Herbert. Philadelphia has Jalen Hurts. Like, there are a lot of good young quarterbacks in this league, but not a ton. There is a good middle chunk of the NFL of teams that just don't know what their answer is to their quarterback question. And I find that so fascinating because it is the number one question teams are trying to figure out. I think there was a period in the NFL, and it's not been as of late really at all, where teams were built or thought they could be built in such a way where you could work with average quarterback play. There's been some bad quarterbacks that have won Super Bowls. Trent Dilfer has a Super Bowl ring. That makes no sense, but he does. Now, he had a generational defense leading the way and carrying him, but that's the point. Unless you have those generational things, as we have now, I think, fully learned, unless you have just a generational defense as one of the greatest in the history of the game, or other really big parts to overcome the lack of a star quarterback, you can't really win. And at the same time, I think we're also seeing, and it's been really solidified, you get the franchise guy, you can win a lot of games. Or at least it puts you in a lot of games. Think about how much Cincinnati's ascent was spearheaded and fast-tracked when Joe Burrow really got rolling. That changed everything in Cincinnati. That team was, for the most part, very similar, but then Joe Burrow gave them life. Think about the Bills. Josh Allen's first couple years were rough, but then he started putting it together. And it was like, man, now Buffalo has something, and now they're investing around that quarterback. Think about Jalen. The Eagles were like, finally, you know what? We're going to invest in Jalen Hurts, see what happens. Jalen Hurts is putting up a season where people think he should win the MVP. I think he should be second, but that's not the debate we're here for. Guys can sometimes show that with the proper investment, they truly are generational players who uplift your team. And there's still so many teams scratching and clawing, trying to find the answer. And I think it's fascinating, the teams that can never seem to figure that out. The Browns think they figured that out with Deshaun Watson, with the nasty man. But he's played terribly since coming off his suspension. Maybe they haven't solved their problem. You know, Houston's been trying to figure this out. They will get the number one overall pick yet again, most likely. They're taking a quarterback to keep trying and solve this problem. And then I think, though, more interesting to me than the teams that are clearly, they got to draft one, are the ones in the middle that are kind of in the quarterback gray area. The Giants are in the quarterback gray area. Daniel Jones is a free agent after this year. They can choose to re-sign him or let him walk. And I don't know what they do. Because Daniel Jones this year has played the best football of his career under Brian Daboll. Daniel Jones this year completing a career-high 67% of his passes. Has a career-high in passing yards. Currently career-low in interceptions. Has the lowest interception percentage in the league. He has 5 picks on the year. Career-high in QBR. Has 4 fourth-quarter comebacks this year. You think about that, easily career-high in rushing yards and rushing attempts this year. Career high in rushing touchdowns. If you're the Giants and you're at 9 wins, have a chance to potentially go for 10. If you're the Giants, what do you do? Do you think you can win a Super Bowl with Daniel Jones? If the answer to that is no, then you think about letting him walk. But because of how well you played, who's the replacement on the board? It's such a weird spot to be in. Because they don't necessarily have the capital to go get a star that's in the draft that's a bona fide franchise stud. But there's not really going to be quarterbacks on the market to go get you and buy you a franchise quarterback. The best one technically on the market is going to be Lamar, but he's never going to make it to the market. The Ravens are either going to franchise tag him or extend. That's what they're going to do. But the Giants are one of my number one teams are just like, what are you going to do? Think about the Jets. The Jets are truly, I think, we joked about for a while that the Broncos, people always said, were a quarterback away. And I think we're kind of saying that wasn't fully true. The Jets might be that. They have some very nice pieces offensively, nice young pieces offensively, and that defense is good. Do they go get Derek Carr? I think they should. Because they need to figure out their quarterback situation. Or if you don't trade for Carr, what do you do? It's those teams in the middle that are so intriguing in what they're going to do. I think we're going to see one of the busier quarterback off seasons we've seen in a while. There were, for the past couple of years, we've seen some fairly busy quarterback off seasons. But there's a lot of teams, I think, that will be in the market for a quarterback. Las Vegas will be. Las Vegas has signaled they're done with Derek Carr. The fact they benched him was to keep his contract from guaranteeing. They will trade him before it guarantees to save themselves about $20-some million. Vegas is going to be in the market for a quarterback. Atlanta's in the market for one. I think Tampa will be because Tom's a free agent. I don't know if he's going to come back, And I don't know if he may even retire, but I think Tampa's in that market. Indianapolis, Houston, the Jets, Carolina, New Orleans, the Giants, maybe. Washington. That's 10 teams right there who I think could be in the market. And then add an 11th with Jared Goff, because I think the Lions are in the same spot that the Giants are. Not in an exact same way. The whole thought was always going to be, you move on from Jared Goff. Jared Goff's playing some of the best football of his career right now. Jared Goff, who had his couple great years with the Rams, then really fell off, has over 4,200 passing yards this year. His first number of 4,000 since 2019. 29 touchdown passes, second highest mark of his career. Only 7 interceptions. He's playing great. What do you do if you're the Lions? The thought always was with Jared Goff was he was just there as a bridge quarterback. As you eat the salary, you kind of reset, and that's where you traded away Matt Stafford. That was, I think, always the thought. Because also, you've now hit the out portion of his contract. You saved $20 million. He has a $10 million dead cap next year compared to a $30.6 million cap hit. If you're the Lions, what do you do? That is, I think, an important question to think about if you are the Lions. It's that, in my opinion, I think that's up to 11 teams that could be in the market for a quarterback. Some will make bigger swings than others. But in a league that is so built on you need the guy under center to make the plays, to be the leader. You need that guy under center to be the one who really leads your team. I think it's very interesting where the NFL is right now. Because we're creeping up on 11 teams in the league don't know what they're doing at quarterback. And even some beyond the 11 kind of think they know what they have, but might not be 100% sure. The Eagles, the Dolphins, they're not going to be in the markets for a quarterback. But are they fully sold on Tua and Jalen Hurts? I don't know. It's one great year for each when they've got some pieces. Can they repeat it? The Browns are kind of stuck with Deshaun Watson because they gave him $250 million guaranteed money. But unless he really rebounds, that seems like a really poor investment. I think you could reasonably say almost half the league either needs a new quarterback or is very uncertain with what they have or aren't 100% sold on what they have. And I think that makes for just such an interesting NFL season and such an interesting postseason we're going to have, and then an even more interesting offseason, because quarterback movement is always so intriguing because it lets you know what teams think they're close, what teams think they're not, and what they're going to try and do, because we've identified that this is truly, without a shadow of a doubt, the most important position in the league. I don't know what's going to happen with the quarterback carousel coming up this offseason, but I think it's going to be one of the bigger quarterback carousels that we have seen in quite some time. Because I think 11 teams are going to be in the market trying to do something with their quarterback position. For teams like the Giants and the Lions, it might just be sticking with what they got in some way and keeping them under wraps going forward. For a team like the Jets, I think they pull off a trade for Derek Carr or some other mid to, above average quarterback because they have other pieces in place and you don't want to waste that window. Teams like the Texans and the Commanders, you probably got to try drafting something, but if you're the Commanders, your capital's not that great. If you're the Seahawks, I haven't even brought them up. They need to figure something out. They're going to have probably the number 2 or number 3 overall pick, thanks to the Broncos. What do? Do you keep Geno? Do you draft someone new at 2 or 3? Do you keep Geno and draft defensively at 2 or 3? It's all of these questions that can all be boiled and simmered around to the simple fact of people not knowing what they have at the most important position in football. It's going to make for a very fun offseason. It's so interesting to see how many teams don't know what they have. And if anything, it also should make you appreciate the fact that the Chiefs know what they got, and what they have is the best quarterback in football in Patrick Mahomes. We'll take a timeout. Coming up next, time for everybody else on the list. Time for Everyone Loves the List here on Mic'd Up. Got Kyle Manthe joining me for the list yet again. Kyle, our list today in honor of the new year. New Year's resolutions that are the hardest for people to keep. I'm not bashing any of you out there that have this as your resolution this year, because I know they're a hot thing right now. Our point is just, we think these are the hardest for people to keep, the ones that most often end up failing. We're not commenting on anyone and their ability to fail at these things, but these just seem to be the ones we think are the hardest for people to keep. Kyle, what's your number 4?
Number 4 is a pretty obvious one, pretty common. Eat healthier. Normally it lasts a few weeks.
It does, and that's why it's also my number 4 is eat healthier. It's difficult from just time, and a general thing with me, you'll find as my list goes today, is I'll just throw a time in a day that just throws off what you're trying to do. That's one of them. Sometimes you want to do it, but just it doesn't work out. It's not easy to do. So time in a day with that there, eat healthier. I'm with you, Kyle. What's your number 3?
Number 3, someone who says, I want to spend less time on my phone, less time watching TV, less time in general in front of a screen.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Hard to do.
It's very hard to do with the way that our world has moved to with screen time. Number 3 for me, people that say they want to read more. This just, again, comes back to reading a book takes time. It's hard. I would love to read more. I like reading. I don't read enough books because I just don't have time in the day and have other things that eat up my time. People that want to read more. I think that's a hard one to keep.
Number 2 for me, someone who says they want to get more sleep.
Yeah, that's
every
hard.
night.
Yep.
But you just don't. There's not enough hours, like you said.
Not enough hours in a day. I will always getting a lot more sleep is hard. Number 2 for me, the classic. I want to work out more. New Year's resolution. Time in a day is what all these comes back to. I respect any of you out there that do. It's just very hard to do.
That's my number one choice. It was pretty obvious for me. People who want to work out more.
Number one for me, I've put a subset to my eating healthier part, which is entirely so I can take a small shot at Jake here. A common one, especially for younger people, is a drink less soda thing, drink healthier options. That was Jake's this past year. Jake kept it for a while and then definitely probably fell off a little bit. Not throwing stones from a glass house, I also should probably do that less, but it is kind of funny to watch that Jake did fail at that last year. But it's hard to do. Changing eating habits, very hard to do. I respect anyone that tries. That is it for today's list. Coming up next, Kellis Robinett will join us to talk K-State. Welcome back into Mic'd Up here on 580 WIBW. Fulton Caster here with you. I do want to say our good man Vance on the YouTube comments to the user resolutions hers to keep says not to punch stupid people. Vance, that's fair. I don't recommend physical violence against people. Not my thing. But honestly, Vance, I can't blame you. There are some people that it just makes your blood boil. That is definitely a harder one to keep. You can, of course, be a part of the show on the Big O Tires text line, 785-272-9429, or in the comments of our YouTube live stream. Go to youtube.com, Sports on 580. Join the live stream. You can jump in the comments as well. But right now, we bring on one of our favorite guests, our good friend Kellis Robinett, covers the Kansas State Wildcats for the Wichita Eagle and the Kansas City Star. You can follow Kellis on Twitter at Kellis Robinett. And Kellis, we'll start here. Did you expect an NBA game to break out in Austin, Texas last night?
I did not. That's a great way to put it. It definitely looked almost like an all-star game with all the points they were putting up. Kansas State came in averaging actually only 75 points per game. So to get up to 116 and break the all-time scoring record, a little bit surprising, but it was fun to watch. And I could take more of that. I'd watch more Big 12 games with both teams hitting 100. It was pretty fun.
I think any game that just gets to those points is just absolutely insane, especially in regulation when you see 116 to 103. It's just absurd. Most points scored at a conference road game by K-State in school history. I'll ask you this, Kellis, just on the points being scored in general, and the fact that K-State shot 60% from the floor. Do you think that was a level of just K-State was executing at a higher offensive level than they have all year? Or was there maybe something about the Texas defense that was making it incredibly easy for K-State to get all those buckets?
Well, I think it was a mixture of both. I certainly cannot compliment the Texas defense. They were leaving Kansas State shooters wide open all game and not really getting back on defense. But at the same time, Kansas State moved the ball very well in this game. Most of the field goals they made, they were assisted field goals. So they were passing the ball good. Marquise Noel was on the floor, got 9 assists. Keontae Johnson had assists. Everybody on the team who got in scored. It seemed like everybody who got on the floor had an assist. Just one of those days where the bucket looked the size of the ocean. Kansas State players were throwing it in there, and I'll say even though Texas didn't have great defense, Kansas State was still making shots from the perimeter, which is really never easy, even if you're guarded or not. So credit to Kansas State of coming out and saying we see an opportunity here to run on the horns, and that's what they did.
That's definitely what they did. They ran incredibly well. Did make 13 threes on the night, which was also very impressive. They made 31 of 33 free throw attempts. Have you ever seen a K-State team be that efficient making free throws on that many attempts? Because it feels like when you get up to like the 30s in attempts, it's just hard to maintain making 94% of them.
No, I mean, I've never seen any team, NBA, Olympics, you name it. I've never seen any team shoot that good from the free throw line. 94%, that's basically like putting a guy at the free throw line and saying, shoot till you miss. And man, they were blistering from that spot. And that was a big difference in the game because Texas was not nearly as efficient there. They missed a lot of freebies. And Kansas State said, yeah, we'll take those points. So that was maybe the most impressive thing of all is that they go shoot. They were above 60% from field goal range. They were above 50% from three-point range, and then above 90% from the free throw line. That's just absurd.
It truly is just a very complete offensive performance from Kansas State. Normally, when we talk K-State and we talk big wins, all we really want to talk about or we focus in on is how well Keontae Johnson plays. And he had another great game in this one. But I want to start with Marquise Noel. He dropped 36 points against Texas to go along with 9 assists. He did that to follow up his 23-point performance against West Virginia. How well have you seen Marquise Noel play as of recently? And is there anything you've seen that you think has really sparked this just amazing run as of late and what's actually overall been a pretty good season so far for Marquise Noel?
Yeah, well, he's playing better than really anybody that maybe be him, his dad, his family expected. We saw some flashes last season when Marquise Noel had his best games with Nigel Pack. You're like, hey, this guy's pretty good. I believe he was an honorable mention All Big 12 guard, which seems about right. But that's kind of how I saw his season. Maybe Jerome Tang could come in and help him out a little bit, but I didn't see him leaping up to being the best point guard in the entire conference. And right now, I think you'd have to say that's what he is. He ranks in the top 10 in the conference in scoring. He leads the conference in assists. He's either first or second in steals. I haven't looked since last night to see where that changed, but he's up there in every category. And it's wild how much he's improved in one season under Jerome Tang. And not that Bruce Weber did a poor job coaching him, but he has really settled down this season. He's taking better shots. He's taking smarter shots. He's passing the ball better. And the biggest thing I've seen is just that he plays within the system. He plays under control. When he shoots threes, he's taking his time. He's getting his shoulders set. He's making sure he's putting a good shot up there. In the past, when he was at Arkansas Little Rock and last season, there were times he was just chucking it up as soon as he crossed half court. Not doing that anymore, and you can see the results.
I'm glad you mentioned the way that it's changing and the way he's playing more under control. That was my big thing when looking at how well Marquise Noel has played this season, because that was my critiques of him last year. Is I liked some of the parts of his game, but it was the uncontrolled nature in which he played. I know this is going to be a hard one to really try and suss out here, Kellis, but do you think that there's a level of just Marquise Noel matured himself and identified enough in his game of what he needed to do to play more within a system? Or how much of a credit do you give to Jerome Tang's coaching that he's found a way to get through to Marquise Noel and get him to understand that he can be an aggressive player and can be a leader for this team, even as he plays within the confines of the system and not, putting up so many errant shots?
Well, I think you give credit both ways. I can tell you that for sure, Marquise didn't love a lot of the criticism he got last season with people saying he took silly shots, played outside the system, was kind of a pickup player. And not that, people were all that rampant about that criticism, but it came at times. Like they had a chance to win a game late against Iowa State. All he did was hold onto the ball and shoot from the logo. And it's like, come on, what are you doing? He didn't like hearing that. And I think he looked back at his tape and realized, hey, I could be a better all around player. I don't have to put up these circus shots. So he dedicated himself to improving in that area. And then I'm also going to give credit to Jerome Tang, who came in and I think just breathed a lot of confidence into this guy, because he's gone on the record saying he only wanted 3 of Kansas State's old players to stick around, and Marquise was one of them. So I think that was a big compliment to him, that he thought this coach coming in really believed in him, and if he trusted in, he could have a great season, and that's what we're seeing happen.
It is really great to see. Moving on to the other star for Kansas State, Keontae Johnson. We cannot say enough about how great he's played this season and the great story that it is. And I think it'll be a tremendous story to follow all year long, of the fact, where he came from, where he was a couple years ago with some of the health issues and the health scare, and didn't know if he was ever going to play again. And now he's playing at an all Big 12 conference level, in my opinion, and honestly playing at such a high enough level and being so important to this Kansas State team. I think there should be reasonable conversation about, could he at one point maybe be in the conversation for Conference Player of the Year. But 28 points, 9 rebounds. He's averaging 18 points a game. He's shooting 58% from the field. Another great efficient game for Keontae Johnson. What have you made of the leadership that Keontae Johnson has shown? And what do you make of his importance to this K-State team with his scoring and leadership and defensive ability and rebounding? Just what do you make of Keontae Johnson's importance to this K-State team?
Well, it's hard to understate just how important he is to the team. Without him, I really don't know where they'd be. They're 13-1, 2-0 in the Big 12 with him. I think they, maybe would only have about 6 wins if he wasn't on the team. That's how big of a deal he means. The first thing I did when he joined the team this offseason was I went to some of the advanced metrics websites and punched in his previous production into the Kansas State roster lineup to see what that might look like once he's a Kansas State Wildcat. And it totally transformed their outlook. They went from a team that was, maybe top 100 nationally. If things broke their way, maybe they could make the NIT, to all of a sudden they're a team that's, bubble team with a real shot to make the NCAA tournament. And he's been better than advertised. He's scored in double figures in every single game. And he's made key shots for him. He's got key rebounds for him. He's a real sustaining presence for the Wildcats, and now all of a sudden, not only does it look like they're going to make the NCAA tournament, it looks like they might be able to have a pretty good finish here in the Big 12 Conference. So the crazy thing about him is I think he's still got some untapped potential out there, because he's not they don't run their offense through him. They really run it through Marquise, and there are a lot of times where Keontae just stands in the corner and doesn't do anything on certain possessions. I'm not saying he's being lazy or anything like that, but that's just the way the offense goes sometimes. There are certain possessions where he just doesn't touch the ball. I'm kind of waiting for one game where he kind of goes ham and says, give me the ball, I'm scoring, and he has 40 or 45, something like that. I think that's possible.
Oh, I would not be surprised if that happens at some point down the line. K-State's next matchup, they go on the road down to Waco. They take on Baylor coming up on Saturday. I said, earlier this year that this was going to be the stretch that I think really told us a lot about K-State with how great their non-conference was they had 3 tough games against West Virginia, at Texas, and at Baylor to start. They're 2-0 in conference play. They're facing a Baylor team that maybe is not as good as Baylor teams has past, but still pretty good. And Jerome Tang knows them very well down there in Waco. Just early thoughts here. How do you think the game might go for K-State and Waco on Saturday? And is there a simple recipe to K-State getting a win down there, especially considering what they did against Texas? Just how do you think the game will go down there in Waco on Saturday?
Well, I'll have to see what Baylor does tonight. They've got TCU at home, and what should be a pretty good game there. I really don't know what to predict at this point. I think it'll be a great chess match. There's no 2 coaches in the Big 12 that know each other better than Scott Drew and Jerome Tang. There's going to be a lot of emotions to the game. I think Scott Drew will be emotional to have Jerome come in there as an opposing coach. I think Jerome will be emotional to put in there, having all the experience he's had at Baylor. He got his big break there. There have been times this season where he still kind of catches himself when he's talking about Baylor. He refers to him as we. That's, even though he's at Kansas State and plays purple now, he still has a strong connection there. So it's going to be an interesting game from that perspective. And I think it'll be a hard game for Kansas State because they're staying down in Texas this week. They're not coming back. They're spending some time in Austin, spending some time in Waco. And, you never really know how a team is going to respond after spending that much time away from home. And not only that, when you take the court for the first time after you score 116 points, I don't know. How do you follow that? I don't know. I think this will be a tough game for him.
I'm fully with you there, Kellis. As we chat with Kellis Robinett, writer for the Wichita Eagle and the Kansas City Star. You can follow Kellis on Twitter at Kellis Robinett. All right, Kellis, let's do a little bit of Sugar Bowl talk here. There was a game that was a disappointing result for K-State football as their season wraps up with the 45-20 loss. I know it's been several days since the game has happened here, but just overall in that game against Alabama, for as much of it you can really remember and think about at this point, what is as much as K-State got to that big 10-0 lead, how much of that game was just simply Alabama's Alabama with all the Alabama talent, and it's just hard to stand up against that?
I don't think you need to read into it too much beyond that. I mean, Alabama is the college football power for a reason. They're really good. They had, I believe, I counted up close to 20 5-star players on their roster and that they had recruited in the past for this game. Compare that to Kansas State. The Wildcats have never once in their history signed a 5-star recruit directly out of high school. So a huge difference there in top-line talent, in overall depth. Yes, Kansas State has some outstanding players like Deuce Vaughn, Felix Enyudike, Uzama, Cooper Beebe, Will Howard. They're all great, all-conference players. When they're on, they can be All-Americans. But, man, Alabama, I think it showed in their special teams. Kansas State usually goes out and beats the other team in special teams. Alabama, with the athletes they had out there, kicking the ball right at the goal line, they were pinning Kansas State deep all day long, getting them awful field position, and you could just tell the difference in talent overall as the game went on. And it transpired pretty much like I thought it would. I didn't get the vibe that Alabama really wanted to be there. Even with Bryce Young and Will Anderson playing, they weren't jazzed to play in the Sugar Bowl without it being a playoff semifinal. Kansas State was. I figured they'd punch first, and they did. They come out, they lead 10-0, look great. Crowd is jazzed, starting to believe, hey, maybe we can actually win this game. Then Alabama punches back, and man, they punched very hard. So just Kansas State just couldn't stand up to them, and I think it's a good measuring stick for them because in future years, if Kansas State has another team like this, that game's going to be in the playoff. It's not going to be a quote meaningless quote Sugar Bowl game. It's going to be on a bracket. It's going to have national championship implications, and this kind of showed them where they need to be if they actually want to get to that level and win a game like this.
Yeah, 35 unanswered points after K-State took a 10-0 lead. I would agree with you, is a very strong punch from Alabama. After this game, the season being over, just kind of looking back on this season, Kellis, what do you think might have been the thing from this season you were most impressed with Kansas State football this year, whether it be, the way Will Howard played, Deuce Vaughn having another great season, the way the defense responded after some injuries? Just what would you say is one of the more impressive things you saw from K-State football over the course of this season?
I'd probably say resiliency, because they lost a lot of players throughout the season, but you would think, man, that's a big loss in this roster. How are they going to keep going? And didn't really ever seem to matter. They lose Adrian Martinez, kind of late on in the season, and people are thinking, oh boy, there goes a pretty good year. And then Will Howard comes in and he's even better. Kobe Savage goes down, one of their best defenders, and it doesn't matter. They keep winning down the stretch. They beat TCU without him. There were just a lot of games where, like, Daniel Green played hurt most of the season. Didn't really seem to matter. They found a way to win the Big 12. I would say that more than anything was what I was impressed with, because a lot of times in the past when Kansas State has had really good teams, there have been years where they've lost a really good player and it has totally derailed things. But Chris Klieman has got the talent level up to a point where they're more than just one or two stars. There were even games when they had to play without Deuce Vaughn for stretches, and DJ Giddens went in there looked pretty good. So they can overcome some things now. They've upgraded talent, and I think it shows.
I think that's a great way to put it, Kellis. The resilience of this team truly was so great to see all season long. All right, Kellis, my final two questions for you are two for the road. First things first, Deuce Vaughn officially declared for the NFL draft. He will go to the 2023 draft, forego his senior season. Is there just any one memory of Deuce Vaughn's time at K-State that just jumps out to you as the quintessential moment you think of when you think of Deuce Vaughn's career?
Oh, I mean, probably the touchdown run he had against TCU in the Big 12 championship game at Jerry World. He gets out in space, fourth quarter. Kansas State needs to go ahead touchdown. He's got one guy to beat, TCU safety, and he just, jukes him out of his shoes, takes the soul, whatever you want to say. I mean, made the guy look miss so bad. I can't imagine what it's like to try to tackle D-spot space. But he really put a move on that guy, scores a touchdown. And that was kind of the moment everybody knew Kansas State was going to win that game. So there were a lot of great highlights. The 88-yard touchdown he had against Alabama was pretty awesome too. But that one sticks out to me. I like that one the best.
I'm with you. There's a lot of good moments, but man, Deuce Vaughn, some of those runs were something special. And then my final one here for you, Kellis. It's hard to predict with K-State basketball, but as they've played right now, do you think K-State makes the NCAA tournament?
Oh yeah. I don't really even think it's much of a question at this point. Things could always happen in the Big 12. You're always, as good as their 2-0 start here in league play has suggested they could be. You're never that far away from a losing streak, so we'll see. But I mean, they're up to like a 6 and 7 seed in a lot of the projections right now. Their KenPom is good. Their net is in the top 30. I mean, if they shoot starting 10-0, I mean, they could go below 500 the rest of the way and still make it in. So I think they'll be dancing. That's not something I anticipated myself saying this season with how much turnover they had. But yeah, I think they're going to be in there.
Kellis, thank you so much, my friend. Have a good rest of the week. We'll talk to you next week.
All right, thanks.
That's Kellis Robinett of the Wichita Eagle and the Kansas City Star. Always fun we get to chat with Kellis. That'll do it for the 1 o'clock hour of Mic'd Up. Coming up next in the 2 o'clock hour, we're from Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. It is time for the final hour of Mic'd Up here on 580 WIBW. Fulton Caster with you to take us home here on this lovely Wednesday afternoon in the capital city. I want to thank Kellis Robinett for coming on, as always, to chat all things K-State. It's always a pleasure to chat K-State with Kellis. Coming up in the 2 o'clock hour, we will finally hear from Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. The media availability was a little bit later scheduled today for everyone to get to the podium. But we do have Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes for you. We will hear from them in just a little bit. We'll also look at the Chiefs' special teams, particularly the kicking game and some of those issues as well. Of course, you can always join in on the conversation on the Big O Tires text line, 785-272-9429, or hop in the comments of our YouTube live stream. Go to youtube.com, go to Sports on 580. Watch the live stream and hop in the comment section as well. Just a couple of ways to get involved with the show today. But to kick off this hour of Mic'd Up, Andy Reid, he met with the media earlier today. Here's what Coach Reid had to say earlier today.
All right. I'll just start with DeMar. That's quite an event that took place there. I mean, there are a lot of things that you can take out of that from a humanity standpoint. We're all pulling for DeMar as he goes forward here. We actually had a team prayer for him yesterday with our team chaplain. So, thinking that any bit of extra that we can get to support him, we're trying to do from afar. But our prayers are also with his family and as they go forward. So, with that. I could talk about our injuries here. Harrison Bucker hurt his back. His back spasmed up today, so he didn't practice. It's getting better as we go here, but he did have some back spasms, and we just pulled off. And then guys that were limited, McCole went out and did some good work today. And we're just going to see how he feels tomorrow. It's day by day. He's trying his heart out to get back in here, man. And L'Jarius Sneed with the hip pointer, Sky Moore with the hand, came out and did just a few things. That hand's still swollen. I mean, he's not and sore. He split. I think. Have I talked to you since? He split his hand. His hand split up there. So, and had sutures put in. So he's recovering from that. I don't remember where we went with this. So we're off the schedule. We did this out of respect for DeMar and his situation. So, but And then Joe Tooney, I had mentioned, hurt his ankle. He's practiced the last 2 days, so he's doing good there. We look forward to the challenge of playing the Raiders. We just got done doing our 2-minute work study, and one of the things you notice real quick is they're in every game. Not that you didn't know that, but they're in every game right to the end. And there were plenty of 2-minute plays at the end of games. So they've got a good football team. Their young quarterback sure did a nice job the other day, and they're well coached. So again, we look forward to that challenge. That it's Raiders and it's Chiefs, and getting better than that. So we're looking forward to going out there and playing them. Anyways, with that, time's yours.
Andy, was there any thought that there may not be games played this weekend? How you guys just kind of gone across that in conjunction with the league?
Yeah, so you don't know in a situation like this. So we just listened and kind of played it by ear with what the league has told us. And so we go forward, and we've practiced and we're doing our thing. So, but in this case, you're listening to whatever the league office gives you, and we trust their decision making. I mean, I thought they did a great job the other night, and that's not an easy thing, is it? I mean, that's a tough situation, and they took it in their hand to cancel or postpone a game. That's it's a bold move for a great reason. So.
Andy, were you watching live at the time? I know you were going to be in and out of doing things, but
I saw it.
Catch on.
Yeah, I saw it. Yeah, it was terrible. So I felt just like everybody else did. It's terrible. So I'm just, I'm glad he's making progress from what I've gathered, like you have. I mean, we're all listening. So sounds like he's making progress, and that's the most important thing, right? So.
Coach, understandably, this is affecting players' mental makeups throughout the league, and I'm sure here too. How do you manage, I guess, and balance that with the urgency of having to prepare for a game on Saturday?
Yeah, so with Dr. T and our crew here, we addressed the issue right away. I mean, this is real, and it's so we didn't tiptoe around it. I mean, we addressed it with the team and talked to them, and they know they have counsel there if they need it. The league's got counsel for them if they need it. That's how we went about it.
And just to clarify, when you say addressed, do you mean beyond just caring for tomorrow, as far as these guys potentially maybe seeing themselves in his shoes at all or anything?
Well, yeah, I mean, they saw it like we did. So just to know that there's help for them if they need to talk to somebody, that we're available. Whether it's religiously, psychologically, we have all the tools. Plus, the league has tools to help you through that. Yeah. And coaches. I mean, we're here the same way. So if a player were to need help or the coach needs help, it's there for them too.
You've known Sean for a long time. McDermott coached with him and everything. Have you had a chance to reach out to him? Can you imagine what he's going through with these guys? I
texted him, both he and Leslie, and but I've stayed away from that. I mean, they've got enough on their plate that they're dealing with, and I know how they're wired. They're great people. I can imagine where their mind's at now.
This is really unprecedented, right? We haven't seen a situation like this. This has been such a next man up mentality in football. This is different than that. There's no roadmap to how to deal with this with players. Is there really?
No, I mean, we've had people paralyzed, unfortunately, and guys have worked through that. I think everybody's kind of waiting for more information on this situation, and but what they saw was obviously, devastating. I mean, that was a tough deal. I would say, I mean, it's so you guys were watching it, so it's that just kick in the gut feeling.
Andy, with Harrison Butker, do you feel like you need to bring another kicker in, or do you?
Yeah, there's a chance. Well, there's a chance we do. He's doing okay, but just from a security standpoint, there's a chance we do that. We haven't quite got that far, but there's a chance you might do that. And that's nothing with Harrison. We have full trust in Harrison, so I don't want to start that kind of stuff.
And McCole Hardman, I believe today is the day you have to either activate him or not activate him. You're going to put him up on the active roster?
Yeah, so Brett's going to go through that and make sure they've got everything covered there. We'll just see how that goes from here. I didn't talk to him here before I came in about that. So,
a couple more guys.
Is there anything that the team is going to do for DeMar? I know some teams have donated to his charity event. I don't know if there's anything that the team has decided to do.
Yeah,
in a similar fashion or otherwise.
Yeah, we'll just see how that goes. We haven't done anything yet. No.
Coach, what's it say about how this league is a family, the way everyone's responding and reacting and supporting DeMar and Bill?
Yeah, I think it's phenomenal. I mean, that's a great part about us as humans. We come to the rescue, which is, we probably need more of that. And in a lot of different situations, but that one for sure was, what kind of unity, love, it's great.
Coach, how do you go into this final game? If nothing had happened last week, you'd be going into the season finale, knowing your number one seed, knowing if you were playing starters, knowing whatever. So in light of what's going on, what the toll it's taken on each player, plus not knowing how all the cards are going to fall out according to the seeding, what is the approach mentally you take in this game?
Yeah, so we know whatever scenario, we've got to go play to try to win the football game, and that's what we have to do. I mean, it wouldn't matter before; we still had to do that. So that's what we're gonna do, and the players have worked through practice and done a nice job with it up to this point. So.
We'll go two more. We'll go with Nate and then Sam.
Andy, you've been obviously leading the head football team for 24 years. You've seen just about every scenario from your vantage point, watching live like the rest of us. Just what came to mind when you saw how Sean McDermott and Zach Taylor tried to both see what their players were going through, obviously digest their own feelings about the situation, and obviously the decision they came together to make.
Yeah, I think it was great. I mean, it was the right decision. Absolutely the right decision. The game didn't need to go on after that. So I thought both of them together did a great job. Great leadership there. And with the league.
Last one, Sam.
And you're obviously very sensitive to this situation. You also play a game this weekend. Has it been difficult to turn the page and prepare this week for your own game?
Well, what we've done is we've tried to put our focus in on taking care of, when we're doing the football part, taking care of the football part. And, that's where we've been at. So I think it was difficult that night in the morning, but, there were some positive reports that came out, and we're pulling that direction. We're trying to take a positive outlook on it the best we can in this situation. And the fact that DeMar is making some improvement, I think is great, and he's a strong kid. So, I think, we're pulling the pulls all the way through.
That was Chiefs head coach Andy Reid speaking earlier today. Of course, a lot of the questions being about the Damar Hamlin situation and all that. No major updates I can even pass on to anyone at this time. There are, from some of Damar's family and close friends who are with him, have said that there are positive signs. They won't get into exactly what the specifics of those signs are. But there have been some very positive signs from Damar over the past recent hours or so. So things are trending in a positive direction, which is all what we always would want to hear. But there are no major updates at this time. I love getting Andy Reid's perspective. I know it must be hard for him to have to discuss these things. It doesn't hard for all the guys to discuss these things, but it's affected the league as a whole. Their game's still going to go on as expected. But the leadership that Andy Reid's always shown, the leadership that Zach Taylor and Sean McDermott showed, it's always nice to see Andy Reid discuss, pulling his guys together, find the way that they go through it day by day. Chiefs quarterback Patrick Mahomes also spoke with the media today. Here's what QB1 had to say when he met with the media earlier this afternoon.
How has this affected you, seeing what happened to DeMar, thinking about it, watching it, praying for him?
I think it affects everyone in this league in a way where it really puts things in perspective. We go out there every week, and I'm not going to say we take it for granted, but you go out there and you play a game that you love and you just enjoy it. And you don't think about things like that happening. And whenever something like this happens, I think it impacts everybody. I mean, obviously, my prayers are with DeMar, his family, the Buffalo Bills, the Bengals, everyone that was in attendance at that game. But I mean, it sent chills through my body when I was watching it, and all I did was just sit there and pray for him, because that's all you can do when you feel like you can't help. And so, like I said, I've been watching updates just like everybody and trying to make sure that first off that DeMar is healthy and he can get back, because at the end of the day, we're people, not just players. And I think everybody understands that even more now.
Do you look at the game any differently at all? I mean, other than just the care for DeMar in that moment, what else goes through your mind? And just looking at the game differently.
Yeah, I mean, it's at the end of the day, it's a game. I think we get lost in that sometimes because we have so much riding on it and we're trying to win championships and do all this different type of stuff, but it's a game. And there's people playing it, and I think you just continue to look at that. And I think the players, we have a good understanding of that, or hopefully you do. But I think you get caught up through a season of just how can I get myself better to win a game, instead of just taking it every single day and just taking it for what it is, and it's not promised. And so I think that's just it puts stuff in perspective for you. But you still come to the building and you just have a greater respect for the game and a greater respect for the people around you because they're giving everything they have every single time.
Andy Reid said that you guys had a prayer with the team chaplain yesterday. Mm-hmm. How have you guys as a team kind of got yourselves mentally prepared, not only to play a game Saturday, but also just to try to digest what you saw and try to move forward?
Yeah, I mean, especially yesterday, it was hard. I mean, when you come back from watching that moment, I mean, I was up all night because you're just on your phone, and I'm like on Twitter just hitting latest, just see if I can just see any more updates to see that he's in better condition than the last time you had seen him. But you get in the building, you get around your teammates, and you just tell them how much you appreciate them because you don't do that enough. And as you kind of get through this week, you still have that at the back of your head. And I mean, I'm at practice, and it's like the first thing I do when I get back in the building is you go look for updates, or you ask Rick, or you ask Coach Reid. And you try to do your job, but at the same time, you want to make sure that you can have that in the back of your mind because that's what's most important.
Do you feel you guys should be even playing today, or Sunday, or Saturday?
It's hard for me to say. I mean, it's not something where I can control it either way. All I can do is come in here and give everything I have in the building, and then when I go home, just appreciate my family. And so I know there's a job to do, and you have to go in there and do it. But at the end of the day, you just want to make sure, like I said, you want to make sure he's all right because that's what's most important. And like I said, it's a game that we all love and we all put everything we have into. But it's a game at the end of the day.
Patrick, all things considered, how difficult has it been to switch into when you're practicing into football mode, or does that serve you guys as maybe a helpful distraction by getting back to work?
Yeah, it can be a little bit of a distraction, just because when you're playing, you're focused on the play and everything like that. But like you said, when you get to the sidelines, or if you when you're in between plays at practice, I mean that's still there a little bit, and so. All you can do is hope and pray that you get good updates every single time one comes out, and that whenever he's healthy, we can move forward and continue to play this game that we all love.
Patrick, you're pretty close, I think, to Josh and I suppose to Mitch still also. Mm-hmm. I wonder if you've been in touch directly with either of those guys or any other guys?
Yeah. I just texted them and said, and I was praying for them and their team. I mean, obviously it impacts us, but I mean, when they're guys that you go to work with every single day, you're brothers. I mean, people say it, but you are brothers. You see these people more than sometimes in your family, and so you build this brotherhood. And I just wanted to let them know that I'm doing whatever I can from far away to pray for them and just be with them. And luckily, they have great leaders over there, and I'm sure they've grown even closer from this, and they're going to continue to do whatever they can to help DeMar and his family.
Patrick, how different is it going to be for everybody in this league when y'all just touch the field just for warm-ups or just leading up to the game this weekend?
I mean, it's hard to say. We're going to be the first game back, and so it's hard to say. I mean, there's a job that you have to do. You put all this work in for months to try to go out there and play your best football. But when you get on that field, I'm sure it'll be a little bit of a weird feeling because it was such a scary incident that was terrifying. I think everybody saw. And so we will see when we get out there. But I know our guys will just get out there, and hopefully when we get to play in the game again, it can be fun and everybody can enjoy it like we have our whole lives.
Patrick, obviously injuries are a part of the game, and every time you go on the field, you recognize that. But do you really think, like when you go on the field, that something like this could happen to you?
I mean, people say it, and you've seen injuries happen that have been major injuries and stuff like that. But I'd never seen anything where someone had been getting CPR and stuff like that on the field. And I don't think I don't know any of us have seen it. It hadn't happened in such a long time. And you don't think about that stuff when you're stepping on the field. You think about how can I win the game? How can I do this and this? And like I said, it puts in perspective that when you go on that field, that anything can happen. And so you got to take this game for what it is. You got to enjoy it, have fun, do it, leave everything you have out there. But at the same time, it's just a game. And when we say that, we have to know that we're going out there and we are putting our lives on the line. And I think we forget that because we've done it so many times and nothing's happened.
I think Patrick makes a great point when it comes to the DeMar situation going on. That these guys play a game, but it's a game that's dangerous. And I think that's something that the DeMar Hamlin situation has kind of brought to light more and more, is that this game is dangerous, that these guys legitimately do put their lives on the line when they do play this game, because it is a game because of the physical nature of it and the way the human body is structured. Bad things can happen. And there's more of a propensity of it than in other sports because of the very physical, very high contact nature of the NFL. But it was, not a lot was spoken to today with Andy and with Patrick about the game coming up on Saturday. And there's a level to that is, what is appropriate to talk about, what's not, in light of the situation. The Week 18 will go on as scheduled. That's the best update I can give you. Week 18 is going to go on as scheduled. The Chiefs are set to take on the Raiders at 3:25 on Saturday. Lewis Riddick, Steve Levy, and Darren Orlovsky on the call for ESPN. After that game is over, there'll be Jags and Titans that night, and Week 18 will go on as scheduled. The Bengals and Ravens, it has been announced, will be a 1 Eastern, so noon our time kickoff. There's not been an announcement if there will be changes to the Bills and Patriots on their schedule. As it stands, Week 18 will go on as scheduled. There's also been no update again as to what they will do with the Bills and Bengals game that has been postponed. Don't know if it will be replayed at a later date, if they'll push back the playoffs. There's a lot of difficult decisions to be made. Who knows? This is an unprecedented situation, unprecedented place for the NFL to be in. But as always, first and foremost, above anything on the field, anything with standings or playoff seeding and all of that, it is the health and the well-being of DeMar Hamlin. I hope that we can get some more positive updates going on tomorrow and throughout the rest of the week. But like I said earlier, there have been some positive signs coming out from his family that he is making positive strides. They will not go into these specifics, but there are positive signs being shown by DeMar Hamlin. He has a long road to recovery ahead of him. But the more news we get about positive signs being shown is absolutely the absolute best. We'll take another time out here on Mic'd Up. We'll be back after this. Welcome back into Mic'd Up. Wrapping up today's show, about 30 minutes or so, a little bit less till we are done this afternoon. I want to thank you all for joining me as always. We have 2 more solo shows, as I will call them. Tomorrow and Friday, just me. And then Jake will be back for Monday. We'll hear all about his time away. And he'll rejoin me. We'll be back to full strength for Mic'd Up. Hopefully, and I would assume, previewing the beginning of the NFL playoffs, depending on what happens with the NFL coming up this weekend. I did here today want to make a note about something that's happening in college football in the Big 12. I, for a while, was a Mike Gundy guy. That's what I was. Kind of like the way he coached, kind of like his football teams. I've moved to kind of the opinion that I'm seeing more people express that maybe we're kind of to a time that the Mike Gundy era at Oklahoma State might need to end. And I think we're getting more and more evidence of it. I think this year his team underperformed, and I think you also saw some of the flaws of his team of not being prepared for the future, mainly for the fact of everything behind Spencer Sanders at quarterback was so bad. I mean, Gunnar Gundy, Mike's son, wasn't good. Garrett Rangel, not good. They were not prepared for life at the most important position after Spencer Sanders. Even Spencer Sanders is always underwhelmed in his career. Then, of course, there was Mike Gundy snapping at a reporter after their bowl game when he was kind of asked, hey, reporter asked the innocuous question. You guys kind of underperformed this season. Will there be changes with the assistant coaches? Mike Gundy just kind of ripped his reporter's head off. And what I say to that is just there's not a better time to ask that question. Also, it's a valid question to ask that you can answer tactfully. Because Gundy's kind of question was, depending on what he answered, guys' jobs and stuff like that. Well, there's proper ways to ask, and there's proper ways to reflect and discuss that you're going to reflect on your staff and what needs to be done. And then there's a couple things that have happened today that have been interesting. First off, there is some transfers coming out of Oklahoma State that's happened as a bigger exodus, but one of their star wide receivers announced his transfer today, which is getting interesting that a lot of members of the Oklahoma State offense have been kind of departing ways, which I found kind of interesting. And then there's a deleted tweet from former Oklahoma State quarterback Spencer Sanders, who entered the transfer portal and doesn't have a home still, which I think is also indicative of his performance level and what most places actually think about Spencer Sanders, the quarterback. But in a deleted tweet from 1:20 this afternoon, Spencer Sanders tweeted an emoji that looks like just a face kind of chuckling to itself and seemingly happy about something that's going on after some more transfers were announced for Oklahoma State. Which to me lends itself more to the idea, it was a little bit after Bryson Green, wide receiver for Oklahoma State, entered the transfer portal. He signed with Oklahoma State during the 2021 cycle, a good player. And it's interesting what is happening at Oklahoma State. Because you got good guys leaving. You had Mike Gundy discussing about, the culture of the team and having the respect of his players, respect of his locker room. That was, one of his things when he was discussing the reporter kind of, asking the question of assistant coaches, about, earning his players' respect and the things you don't talk about and blah, 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 blah. I wonder if it's truly time for Oklahoma State to move on. I don't know what Mike Gundy's buyout is. I know they just a few years ago set up that new rolling contract, which is eventually a lifetime contract for Mike Gundy. I don't know the logistics of buying out a lifetime contract. But, think about Oklahoma State and kind of how they've underperformed at times. It's also coming to see, because we talk about it and we go, well, you might tell me, well, Fulton, they just went to a Big 12 championship game just last season. Yeah, the two teams that were in that game last year both had down years this year. It was Baylor and it was Oklahoma State last year who played in that game. Baylor finished after their bowl game loss 6-7. Oklahoma State finished 7-6. Maybe that kind of tells you something. And especially with both of them winning a lot of close games last year, maybe that tells you something about luck and regression to the mean for some of the games that they played. But the fact that they did finish 12-2 last year, were 8-1 in conference play after they lost their one conference game to Iowa State. But like, you think about the COVID year in 2020, a weird year. Oklahoma State went 7-3, nice, but COVID was really tough and weird to do. But 2019, 8-5, that's good, but not great. You go back to 2018, they were 6-6 in the regular season, 7-6 after they won the Liberty Bowl against Missouri. 2017 was a pretty good year. They went 9-3, but still some different things happening. And then, they have another 9-3 year in 2016. They've had success, but it's never been to the level that you would think that they would want. But then, moreover, there's also just a level of underperformance in an area of things not moving on. And then just the way Mike Gundy's acted around the program. There's been some off the field things with some of his things he's said and beliefs, with whether you agree or disagree with him. I'm not here to debate that part. But things that have caused distractions and things that may, at least I think, properly questioned by some people, if it is time for the Oklahoma State Mike Gundy partnership to end. I don't think it'll end anytime soon, if I'm being frank. I might be asking these questions, and I might think that I think Oklahoma State might need to try and move on to modernize some things and change some things up, because I think Oklahoma State has gotten kind of stagnant, even in years where it's like, well, if only won 8 games, won 9 games. Yeah, that's nice. They've never, though, felt like a team that, they're going to win the Big 12 fully. And I know what happened last year. I get what happened last year. I do. But with the way things happened this year, last year feels, I'll use the word, fluky. It feels very fluky what happened for both Oklahoma State and Baylor last year. So I don't really want to use that as the barometer for what you take out that year. They've done good things, but they've always fallen short of what you have to assume is their ultimate goal. And with all that considered, I know they've done good things under Mike Gundy, but the way he acts, the things he said, the way that program, I talked about it with Jerome Tang at K-State basketball, not with Flying Slap K football. Culture matters. The culture you cultivate at a program is important. I'm not deeply in the weeds in Oklahoma State. I'm not anywhere near what's going on in Stillwater. But what keeps coming out, what you read through the tea leaves, it feels like the culture at Oklahoma State is souring. That's the first sign of a program going south, is when there's not a good culture. Think about failing programs, especially in collegiate sports. It's because their culture is bad. It's because the locker room is bad. It is toxic. I don't know what Oklahoma State fully is, but it's really starting to kind of stink down there in Stillwater. And I'm really thinking Oklahoma State might need to start having the tough conversation of maybe it's going to start preparing for life without Mike Gundy. Because I don't know what they're going to do going forward. I don't know how good Oklahoma State's going to be next year, because their quarterback situation isn't great. Unless Mike Gundy brings in somebody stellar that we aren't expecting, or we get an absurd development that has been seen out of either Garrett Rangel or Gunnar Gundy, that quarterback room stinks. And it's hard to win football games with a bad quarterback. It is hard. And if that's the case, Oklahoma State has no one to blame but Mike Gundy himself and his staff for the team being unprepared at the game's most important position. The fact that they were not prepared for life without Spencer Sanders, and the fact that Spencer Sanders has transferred and has not found a home, I think those are some kind of damning evidence what might be time to end the change eras down at Oklahoma State. I don't know what they're going to do, but the more and more things that come out make me believe that, man, things in Stillwater might go a lot more south before they start going north. I could be wrong, but Oklahoma State football, I think, is in a worse spot than they've been in some time, which for other members of the Big 12, that's great. But it's just interesting to see happen to one of the stalwarts of the Big 12. We're going to take a timeout. When we come back, we'll look at the Chiefs special teams. It was right at the buzzer with 26 minutes to go. The Kansas City Chiefs made the move they needed to make. And they have activated Mecole Hardman off of injured reserve. They had 26 minutes. They had until basically 3 o'clock our time. Not exactly that, but basically that. They had until that moment to activate Mecole Hardman this week. If they had not activated Mecole Hardman this week, he would have been stuck on injury reserve the rest of the year. He would not have been able to play against the Raiders. He would not have been eligible to play in the playoffs. So Mecole Hardman is back. He is eligible to play on Saturday against the Raiders in the playoffs. The corresponding move, which I was curious about, I was wondering what would the move be when Hardman came back. Offensive tackle Jaron Christian has been waived to make room for Mecole Hardman on the 53-man roster. Someone might pick him up. If not, maybe he'll get put on the practice squad. But Jaron Christian is the corresponding move for the Kansas City Chiefs. So we might finally get to see the Chiefs run out 6 wide receivers on Sunday. Not at one time in one formation. That is, well, no, that math doesn't math. You can only have 5 eligible pass catchers at any time, pretty much. I'll be honest, I was really trying to think of a way they could put all 6 on the field at the same time. But they can't because you have your 5 offensive linemen, 5 receivers, quarterback makes the 11. Basically, one of the receivers had to take the spot of an offensive lineman, and you don't want that to happen. Man, I was really hoping I could find some really creative way to make that work, but no, that math doesn't math. I'm smarter than that. But I would not be surprised to see if all 6 of the Chiefs wide receivers are active on Saturday against the Raiders. We'll see what Mecole Hardman can do coming back from his injury, but Mecole Hardman officially activated off of the injured list. He is back and will be in a position to play on Saturday against the Raiders, knock some of the rust off, and then he'll be ready for the playoff push coming up next week. But as we started with today, the Chiefs special teams has been talked about a lot about this team. And even when Brendan joined me yesterday for Crosstalk, that was the thing he said was the most concerning for him about this Chiefs team and about their chances to make a playoff run was the special teams, was the kicking unit. Matt Verderame, he spoke on 580 Sports Talk yesterday as well. He noted the Chiefs special teams is the thing that he would be the most worried about. It is not a rare opinion to have that many believe them figuring out what's going on with that unit is one of the biggest barriers to the Chiefs being able to make a long playoff run. And I'd have to agree, looking at the numbers today, I'd have to agree. The Chiefs on Harrison Butker missed or blocked or whatever kicks alone have lost out on 29 points on failures from the field goal kicking operation. 29 points. 4 touchdowns worth of points they have lost from failed kicking operations. That's a lot of points left on the board. And like I said, there are faults at different levels when it comes to the kicking operation specifically for the Chiefs. I think there could be a fault with Butker, the kicker, and either his technique being off right now and his mechanics being off, or he's still dealing with a nagging injury. I will also add, speaking of Harrison Butker, he was listed with an injury on the injury report today. He did not practice today due to back spasms. The Chiefs hope he's ready to go on Saturday, though they will more than likely sign a kicker to the practice squad as an emergency kicking option that they could elevate coming up on Saturday if need be, because they play the day earlier. They want to be a little more proactive with some of their divisions that they're trying to make here. But that is worth noting when we're discussing the kicking today. Harrison Butker did not practice due to back spasms today. Hopefully he's ready to go to kick on Saturday. But there's been issues there. Then there's been, of course, the publicly criticized holding of Tommy Townsend. I mean, the PAT that was botched on Sunday against the Broncos, that looked like a hold issue. Tommy didn't have the hold right and had to bail out and try and run it in for 2 points, and it failed epically. So I think the kicking unit truly is the number one area where the Chiefs need to identify and fix these special teams woes that they have, but I don't know that it has a clear, easy fix. I've gone on at length. I have faith in Harrison Butker as a kicker. I know that this year has been troubling for him. I think the injury is a big part of it. I think the injury and it causing him to have to change up some mechanics are a big part of the problem. And I know that that is an excuse or reasoning that not many people will appreciate. But I do feel that it is the accurate one and one that is important to keep in mind when discussing his issues this year, because coming into this year, he had been an accurate kicker. 89% last year, for a kicker, pretty good. Pretty good to be almost at 90% of your field goals made. To miss only 3 kicks all year. To make most of your extra points. That's important. And that's what he was last year. He had the extra point issue the year before, but overall has been usually a fairly consistent kicker. He's one of the most accurate kickers in NFL history. And I know that is being thrown off this year, and I know that that is affecting some things. And I know he's even not probably the same guy that was really fully automatic even a couple years ago. I think there might be a question of, the run of Harrison Butker as being a really great kicker might be coming to an end sooner than anybody would want, because you would hope your kicker can be incredibly accurate for a good long stretch of time, and you get a really good accurate kicker when he's young, and he's that way until he's 40. And you never have to worry with these questions, and you just get to move on with your day. But maybe change has to be made at some point. I have gone at length, though, to say I really wouldn't, because we've seen what backup kickers can be. It's a roulette wheel. Matthew Wright, when he came to kick, fantastic, excellent, great work. He's done great work for other teams this year. Great work. Matt Amendola had one good game, then had a really bad game against the Colts. So it's a mixed bag. It goes back to my larger point that I've always been about a lot of things of go with the known commodity over the unknown. Yeah, Harrison Butker's had issues. I would be stunned if he came back next year and he kicked 80% again and was this bad again. I would be stunned. I would find it incredibly surprising if he had another year like this. And I know Jake at length has discussed the cap hit. I know others have discussed the cap hit as well, and it being, kind of the issue or the thing that would be the thing that, is why people would want to move on. Until the cap hit becomes an issue and you have cap space for other things, until it becomes the necessary move you have to do to make the space, I wouldn't do it, because you know what you have. You have a fairly reliable kicker that for most years of his career has been accurate. And that's why I go to with this Harrison Butker situation. But I can't deny, when it comes to the Chiefs special teams unit, the kicking unit is the number one thing to focus on. Because we've discussed the muff punts today and things like that. Catching the ball cleanly, I think, has been solved. Kadarius Toney, as of now, knock on wood, has not had an issue catching the ball cleanly. I think we're past, and it looks like Sky Moore will only be used as incredibly emergency situations. And right now, as long as Hardman and Watson are active along with Toney, or even one of those two is active along with Toney, you have 2 punt returners ahead of Sky Moore. He is truly an emergency option. So I think the muffed punt issue might be behind the Chiefs. It's one we think about, but I think so. And Toney just has to be smart about where he's fielding punts. That was the issue with the game on Sunday against Denver. It wasn't even that the fumble was bad, but it was also where he fielded it. He shouldn't even probably have fielded the punt. So I think those little issues on special teams are more solved. But the kicking unit, the kicking team of Winchester, Townsend, and Butker, they got to figure something out. I don't know what it is. I don't know where they're going to figure it out at. But I can't deny, when over 3 touchdowns worth of points have been left on the board by the kicking unit of Butker, Townsend, and Winchester, you got to figure something out. Because it's obviously some kind of a problem, and it's a problem you would not like have to repeat itself and rear its ugly head in a close playoff game. Because in regular season games, sometimes 3 points really doesn't matter. But in a playoff game, where those games are often close, where they come down to the wire, 3 points is massively important. And making sure you can make those kicks with regularity and with certainty is such a top-tier important factor. I will defend Butker as the kicker for as long as I'm here, because I think this is just a bad year that is an aberration. But I will not deny that he also does need to figure it out sooner rather than later. That the point of kind of brushing this off is very much gone. They need a clean game against the Raiders. I hope the game against the Raiders is a clean game from a kicking perspective. Hopefully it is. We don't know if it will be, but we'll hold out hope. We'll take one more timeout. We'll come back and wrap things up with the mic drop. Time to wrap things up with the mic drop here on Mic'd Up. To finish up today's show, man, it was fun watching K-State score 116 points last night. I mainly focused on the KU game. I can't lie about it. I'm a KU guy. I'm a KU grad. It's what I'm going to focus on. I was two-screening it. And while that game was stressful, it was enjoyable at times to kind of finish up watching K-State drop 116 points of regulation. Marquise Noel having a great night, scoring 36 points. He's just been on a heater as of late. 59 points over his last 2 games is absurd. Keontae Johnson playing well, still one of the greatest stories in college basketball. K-State's fun, man. I got to give all the credit in the world to him. K-State basketball is fun. It is going to be enjoyable watching that team play this year. And overall, it's also amazing the fact that in the first year under Jerome Tang, we had to build so much of that team out of the transfers and the transfer portal and construct that team on the fly. He has really, really got himself a good team over there in Manhattan. And they are going to be, in my opinion, almost a guaranteed NCAA tournament team as long as nothing really wacky happens in the Big 12 this year. But without doubt, the Big 12 is, who knows? Who knows what will happen? But no matter what, last night, K-State giving Texas the business. It is always fun when the Texas Longhorns get absolutely walloped by somebody. That'll do it for today's show. I want to thank you all for joining me today. Coming up next, 580 Sports Talk with Brendan and Dan.